Hello friends, my name is Arif and today I'm going to talk about Yggdrasil, the axis Mundi, in a sense of being symbolically the center of the world and all life revolving around this cosmic axis. It was common in ancient civilizations the belief of an axis Mundi, a central point in which the world existed, a connection between the heavens and the earth, the source of all life, and also the connection between different reality planes. The very thing connecting the realms of the divine, such as the sky, the earth, and the infernal. But infernal not in a Christian sense, related to hell, because pre-Christian and pre-Abrahamic beliefs had not the concept of an infernal realm for punishment. Infernal rather in a sense of inferior realm, underworld, just like the world above is called supernal, celestial. To the Scandinavians and other Germanic peoples, this axis Mundi was Yggdrasil, the world tree. Now we have to take in mind that the oldest documentations about Yggdrasil are from the 10th century, and we have to be careful with this, because this was a time when paganism was already coming to an end. And since the 9th century, Christianity was already a force to be reckoned with in the north. And such polytheistic accounts were registered by Christians, who perhaps had already lost the true meaning of the pagan folklore, because they wrote such accounts many years after the conversion of the countries. And also the Norse beliefs at this time had already a lot of influence from the new religion, Christianity. And speaking of this, let's take a closer look into two of the most important sources to understand Norse mythology, the Poetic Edda and the Prose Edda, which date from the 13th century. So, the Poetic Edda is a combination of poems, which of course date far back before the coming of Christianity, but from oral tradition, so there's no telling how much these poems have changed with time. So let's say that the Poetic Edda is the medieval version of such accounts, such oral traditions. On the other hand, the Prose Edda, written by Snorri Sturluson, is a manual of skaldic poetry using periphrases and metaphors of mythological references. So Snorri Sturluson turned to folklore and to poems contained in the Poetic Edda and other poems which have survived in oral tradition to create this work. So this work by Snorri Sturluson is synthesized and simplified view of the Norse mythology, in contradiction with other sources and also greatly influenced by Christianity, which at this time Christianity was the official religion in Iceland in Snorri Sturluson's time for 200 years already. But about these sources, the Poetic Edda and the Prose Edda, if they are reliable, I think it's best to make a video on another time, so let's go back to the subject. Now I advise you to turn on the subtitles, because there will be a lot of strange names and terms as always, and also I will show you a couple of images to illustrate this, because I think it might be a bit boring, but with a lot of useful information, so let's go. We shall stick with the version we know of Yggdrasil, being the world tree. The term Yggdrasil comes from two elements, Hygre, which is one of the names for the god Odin, meaning terrible, as in Odin being the terrible, the fearful, the dreadful. And the term Drasil, which refers to the one who walks something, the one who rides something. And it's also a poetic term for a mount, a horse. So as you might rightfully guess, Yggdrasil is Odin's mount, vehicle or horse, meaning that this deity used the world tree to travel between worlds. He uses this cosmic axis to journey into different worlds. But the term Drasil can also be connected with the gallows or hanging as a form of execution, which was compared for some reason with the horse. For example, the 11th century poem Holygiathal from Hindvindr Finnsson, which refers to Sigurd's horse, a legendary Scandinavian king, as also being his gallows. This gives us the connection of Yggdrasil being the very thing Odin uses to hang himself, kill himself, in order to be able to free himself to pursue the knowledge he so deeply wished for. We can see in here an old shamanic tradition of freeing the spirit from the body to reach the world of the spirits and gain knowledge and communicate with the spirits and the gods. And we also can see a very old shamanic tradition of the horse being the vehicle that carries the spirit into the world of the spirits, and we can see this in many spiritualities all around the world. There might be another possible explanation for the name Yggdrasil. It's also referred as Haskr Yggdrasil, or the ash tree Yggdrasil, meaning that Yggdrasil was an ash tree. So this might mean that this was the tree that Odin strapped his horse, or where Odin tied his rope to hang himself. Well, after all, poets play with multiple meanings, and what seems to us a simple tree might be a metaphor for something else. This interpretation leads us again to a shamanic comprehension in how to reach the world of the spirits through a symbolic but painful death. Perhaps a ceremony around a great pillar, symbolizing the center of the world, the axis mundi, or Yggdrasil, the world tree, and maybe that pillar being made from the trunk of an ash tree, being a tree perhaps with magical properties or with a great symbolical meaning to our ancestors that go far back into a time perhaps since our ancestors began to have their first spiritual thoughts. Charlemagne, for instance, in the 8th century, he destroyed the great symbol of the Saxon faith. It was called Hirminsul, and to this day we still don't know if it was a tree or a great pillar or some sort of idol. Well, it was something big and vertical, possibly the remnants of this tradition of an axis mundi. So maybe Hirminsul for the Saxons might have been what Yggdrasil was for the Scandinavians, a great pillar, a symbol of their faith and the connection between all living things from our world and from the world of the spirits, the remnants of a spiritual shamanic tradition. But this world tree isn't just the symbol of the shamanic techniques used to reach the world of the spirits, or a symbol of the very connection between worlds. It is also a symbol of that which gives life. For instance, in the poem Grimnismal, deer eat from the foliage of Yggdrasil, and a great eagle lives on top of it, and on the very bottom of the tree Nidogre gnaws upon the roots, and that's also where snakes live. And a squirrel named Ratatoskre goes up and down the tree delivering messages between the eagle and the great serpent. So this shows the amount of life a tree can give. It is the home of the living creatures of the forests. It also gives shelter, and it's also a source of food. Another point is that in the poem Völuspá, it is said that Yggdrasil is an evergreen tree, which is odd because the ash tree is a kind of deciduous tree. But the Norns water the tree with the waters from the well Hurðarbrunnur, supposedly magical waters that also give life. It is the well of destiny, and it keeps Yggdrasil healthy and evergreen. And finally, as it is written in the poem Gylfaginning, tree gods created the first humans from the bark of trees. And one of those humans being named Hask, which means ash tree, making the ash tree once again the source and creation of life, invoking the beliefs passed on by oral tradition from a past far beyond memory, when our ancestors were much more attached to the natural world than we are today, unfortunately. But they already understood the importance of nature as a source of whole life and as a means of communication with the spiritual and with the divine. Alright friends, thank you so much for watching and thank you for your time. And I'm sorry if I'm wearing glasses, but with each passing day I'm becoming a mole. All the links to my social media are down below at the description. Thank you so much for watching, see you on the next video and tack för idag!